1912, the greatest maritime disaster in North Atlantic history. RMS Titanic was the ship they called unsinkable. It was a luxurious floating palace, the largest ship of her time, doomed from the moment her maiden voyage began. 74 years later, the Titanic's resting place is uncovered, and explorer Dr. Robert Ballard dives deep into the disaster that shook the world. National Geographic journeys through tragic corridors beneath the sea to uncover the secrets of the Titanic.
Vesuvius. In a blast of fury, it swallowed the Roman towns of Pompeii and Herculaneum, and for centuries their secrets lay buried in mystery. Now, the shroud is lifted. Out of the ashes of an ancient disaster, a story emerges. And disaster may well strike again, but a proud and vibrant people stubbornly remain in its path. Join National Geographic on the threshold of history, in the shadow of Vesuvius.
The empire called the Soviet Union seemed eternal. Then, in 1991, the world turned upside down. The empire suddenly disintegrated. But the rigid order of communism was soon replaced by confusion and uncertainty. Many Russians, faced with a difficult present, became obsessed by the vanished past, by the story, long forbidden and distorted, of Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia. He was called Bloody Nicholas. In 1918, he was executed with his entire family. But in the 1990s, he became celebrated as a romantic hero, even perhaps a saint. Paintings, photos, and early films, long locked away in official archives, were dug out, dusted off, renewed, and retouched. History had changed, and the last Tsar of Russia was back from the dead. Once there was a quiet, handsome prince and a shy, beautiful princess who fell in love. Their names were Nicholas and Alexandra. She was from Germany. His family, the Romanovs, had ruled Russia for almost 3 centuries, and he was now heir to the throne.
My dream is someday to marry Alex. I have loved her a long while, and still deeper and stronger. Nicholas.
Her grandmother, Queen Victoria, wrote, "How impossible that gentle, simple little Aliki should be the great Empress of Russia." But they were married, and all accounts agree. Nicholas and Alexandra loved each other until the day they both died.
When this life is ended, we will meet again in the other world. I love you. Those 3 words have my life in them. Alexandra.
In May 1896, for the first time ever, movie cameras captured history. Nicholas was crowned Tsar of all the Russias, ruler of an empire that was 1/6 of the entire world. The ritual lasted 5 hours, and it seemed to commemorate a vanished age, an age when absolute rulers reigned over Europe. A time of high splendor for emperors and kings, and unspeakable suffering for almost everyone else. The crown was heavy with diamonds and pearls, and the enormous burden of power.
I am not ready to be Tsar. I never wanted to become one. I know nothing of the business of ruling.
21 years later, the Tsar of all the Russias was overthrown. The communists came to power. And with the rise of the common man, the symbols of royalty were eradicated. The past was demolished. History was erased. And then rewritten. But even in Stalin's Russia, a few isolated people became obsessed by the Tsar, by the Russia that no longer existed. They began to search for that forgotten past. One of those people was Edvard Radzinsky. When he was still a child, his father had shown him a magical book.
It was a great big book. And when I opened this book, I saw fantastic photographs. It was photo of very beautiful girls with very handsome boy. I asked my father about this photo, and he explained me that it's Tsar's family. I saw these photographs as to window. It was strange window, and through this window, I saw this Atlantis, the endless photos of disappeared world.
In the bleak grey world of Stalin's Russia, the romantic colors of the royal past seemed impossibly bright. For Radzinsky, this first brush with a mysterious history was the beginning of a lifelong obsession. In the 1960s, he began a secret quest to find the true story of the murder of the Tsar. In the depths of a Moscow archive, he found an astonishing record of a lost world, photo albums that Nicholas and his family had made for themselves.
I felt strange sense. It's possible only in archive. It's sense when you felt hands of people, of absolutely unknown people. I have feelings that I felt hands of Nicholas.
The albums told of palaces and yachts, of public grandeur and private joys. Radzinsky had found a keyhole into the intimate lives of royalty. but the albums would remain locked away in the archive for another 30 years, forbidden until now. Nicholas was a model father, calm, kind, quiet. Alexandra was devout, trusting and solemn, a passionate wife and loving mother. Their 4 daughters, Olga, Tatiana, Marie, and Anastasia, looked like identical paper dolls. The heir to the throne, Alexei, was the only boy and a typical youngest child. Bright, mischievous, a little wild.
We would be lying in these windowsills, waiting for them to ride by, and we would always wave at them.
Vera Dziviankovskaya is one of the few who can still remember the royal family. Her father was a servant of the Tsar.
The girls always wore beautiful dresses. They would see us and smile. We were little. We liked everybody. We liked the way they looked. Of course we liked it. This was our emperor.
To most Russians, the emperor was not merely human. He was a direct representative of God. Nicholas believed that there was a special bond of love and trust uniting the common people and the Tsar. And he would place his trust in that love until the very end. The public Tsar had to be dignified. In private, he could relax, and the camera was his favorite toy. The whole family took pictures, then pasted them into albums, as if to show the world so many years later how much they loved each other.
July 1918. I killed Nicholas point blank. A common grave was dug. The bodies were doused with sulfuric acid to prevent the stink of rotting.
The center and symbol of the Tsar's invincible power was St. Petersburg, the city that Peter the Great had built from scratch, piling tons of stone onto barren marshes. The result was an elegant capital, a city of ornate fountains, glittering palaces, and Baroque splendor.
Petersburg was, without a doubt, the most exciting, wonderful, glamorous city to live in, and I would have given anything to be living here, to have been a fly on the wall, to have seen it as it was then. The Winter Palace was a great setting for those balls. They had rooms big enough to hold 5,000 dancing couples. These lackeys that would go through swinging censers of sweet smells through the halls. And in wintertime, people would rush out and go sliding down the ice hills and go off and drink champagne. What a time to have been here.
In her first winter in Russia, Alexandra went to 32 balls. But the Empress was never comfortable in fashionable society. The family soon moved 15 miles outside St. Petersburg to the Alexander Palace. Even in the country, she was not happy. Nicholas worried.
She spends most of her time in bed, lives in seclusion, and looks out of the window for hours.
What was wrong with the Empress was Alexei. The heir to the throne had hemophilia, a fact the family kept absolutely secret. He tried to act like other boys, but he was not like other boys. Like many descendants of Queen Victoria, his bleeding could not be controlled. Even for a quick tussle in a hammock, both hammock and ground had to be padded with soft hay. Still, Alexei's fragile health did not prevent him from expressing his imperial nature. Princess Vera of Russia often played with her royal cousins when the 20th century was young.
It was a nice spring day. I was with my nanny, and we met the heir. There was still snow lying on the ground, and there was a great big puddle. So the heir looks at the puddle and at me, and then he suddenly says, "Vera, in there." I didn't need a second word. Right into the puddle I hopped.
While the family played in their imperial park, discontent had begun to boil below. In 1902, Leo Tolstoy, among the greatest writers ever, wrote to the Tsar.
I should not like to die without having told you what I think of what you're doing. The prisons are filled with persons sentenced for political reasons. Troops ready to fire on the people have been sent into every city. And the peasants are getting poorer every year. Famine has become a normal phenomenon.
Russia was falling apart. Yet Nicholas dreamed of expansion in the Orient. His confident army moved east. But Japan quickly dealt out a series of shocking defeats. The news of humiliation abroad ignited protest at home. In January 1905, workers marched to the Winter Palace with a petition asking the Tsar for free speech and the right to vote.
Sire, we have come to you to seek justice and protection. We are not recognized as human beings.
They sang God Save the Tsar. Portraits of Nicholas floated over the crowd, but troops blocked the way. Some say 200 died, some say 1,000. It would be called Bloody Sunday.
Bloody Sunday was a turning moment in the relation between Tsar and people. After Bloody Sunday, you see, the people didn't believe more that the Tsar was a father, but it was a man who killed them. There was a great change, and from this day, revolution is inevitable.
The Tsar became known as Bloody Nicholas. Geli Ryabov now writes popular detective stories. But in the 1960s, he was a real detective. A communist policeman who truly believed that the Tsar was evil.
I could be writing my detective stories, live my life, not worry about anything. But sometimes when we look back, we find a wound, a thing that once it finds its way into the heart, it stays there forever.
One day in 1976, he traveled to the city that had once been called Yekaterinburg. He soon found the house where the Tsar had been murdered.
No one had told me that this was the house, but somehow I realized this was it. It seemed that in the next moment, from behind the tree, the Tsar would appear.
Ryabov went downstairs into an eerie half-basement, a small, quiet room that had once seen blood and death.
It made an incredible impression. Just to imagine that on this floor, there were people falling down in blood, screaming, and then they were killed. I don't know. I think that even Satan himself, after visiting that place, would have become different. I became different. I decided that I had to find the remains of the Tsar.
The Tsar was a man who liked to play. He did not like to govern.
Nicola didn't like at all to be with his ministers because it was boring for him, you see. He liked better to be hunting, and hunting was his passion, number one. And one day he forgot to go to the ministers, and his main servant told him, "Sir, please, don't forget your duty." But my duty is to go to hunting, you see, because I like this.
Hunting was just part of an enviable routine. Every June, the Tsar relaxed on the sleek yacht Standard as it roved the fjords of Finland. But the greatest pleasure for the ruler of all the Russias was strikingly common: his family.
I am glad to see the children again, and not the ministers.
But Bloody Sunday triggered a storm of demonstrations and strikes. By late 1905, the country was paralyzed.
Dear sweet Mama, my prayers for you will be especially fervent during this holiday. It has been so cozy here. Thank God the uprising was crushed.
After unrest came repression. Over 5,000 leftists were condemned to death. Thousands more were shipped off to forced labor in Siberia. Lev Razgon, born in 1908, grew up under the Tsar. He soon became a true believer in the revolution.
To us, the Tsar was vague, superior, and unreachable. Something like God. No one ever thought he was responsible for what was going on. But I think the Tsar was unconditionally responsible for what was going on. Not one of the Russian Tsars had done so much evil or killed so many of his people as he did. But Nicholas was sure that the people loved him. The Tsar was a prisoner of his illusions.
One group that did love the Tsar was a fierce clan of horsemen called the Cossacks. Sasha Schmich's grandfather, a Cossack, served Nicholas. Years later, after the fall of communism, Schmich hoped that an imperial Russia would rise again, united under a new Tsar.
If my leader gives me an order, I take my weapon, a sword, and I go do what he orders me to do. This is what my grandfather was taught. He was ready to die for the Tsar. He was ready to kill every enemy of the Tsar. That is what it means to be a Cossack.
Слава! 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 Великая единая неделимая Россия, ура! 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 Ура!
A Cossack's mission is to lead men along the path of glory to the revival of Imperial Russia. We must be the first. Everybody will follow us.
Давайте поменем нашего бывшего покойного императора Николая II.
We want to return to the past, and it's a difficult return. Blood will be spilled again. But we must go back to where we got lost and start again with a new Tsar.
Some people in our culture are creating a completely mythical understanding of how people lived in Tsarist Russia. I think that history is being romanticized.
Being a Tsar for Nicholas meant ceremony and tradition, not discussion.
He couldn't bear to be with people more clever than himself, more witty, because he had no conversation, you see. For instance, when you have a reception, he never remained with people because he didn't have anything to tell. He was without any idea on anything.
Nicholas never thought he was a brilliant, brilliant man, you know. He would have been a wonderful English king, perfect English king, who had to go to hospitals and cut ribbons.
Nicholas reviewed countless military parades. Often he brought Alexei along to learn the trade. Alexei commemorated the occasions with his watercolors. The heir enjoyed the pomp and ceremony immensely, and so did Nicholas. But Alexandra was not pleased by the constant demands of duty. She did it, but hated it. Her mind was elsewhere, on Alexei's secret illness. Her boy, she thought, was doomed. So Alexandra placed her faith in God.
Now, polite society at that time, or let's say fashionable society, certainly paid a lot of lip service to orthodoxy, but there were very few people who were really, if one may say, totally devout. So here was a young German empress who suddenly was more orthodox than anybody. They made fun of her at first, but later that developed into very severe criticism and even animosity, hostility.
So the empress could walk to worship and pray undisturbed. The family dedicated a private chapel at Fyodorovsky Cathedral. "80 years later, the cathedral saw its first service since Alexandra's time. For decades, the church had been neglected. It had been used by the communist government as a vast warehouse. Now, hymns echoed off the stone walls that had heard Alexandra's constant prayers for the health of her son. Her prayers were apparently answered. One day, Nicholas wrote in his diary,
"We have gotten to know a man of God, Grigory Rasputin.
He did not look holy. His hair was greasy, his beard studded with fragments of food. Rasputin ate fish soup with his hands. But he would soon become one of the most powerful men in Russia. The crucial moment came in the summer of 1912. One afternoon, Alexei bruised his leg in a rowboat. Weeks later, the bruise was still bleeding internally.
Last night, the poor darling suffered intensely. He kept repeating, 'O Lord, have mercy upon me.'"
Rasputin was a very modern sorcerer. He healed over telephone and telegraph. His telegram came from Siberia.
God has seen your tears and heard your prayers. Do not grieve. The little one will not die.
The boy lived. To Alexandra, Rasputin was her son's savior. She believed absolutely in the monk's holiness, but it was a peculiar kind of holiness. Rasputin indulged in endless drinking and debauchery. One police report ran,
At about 11 p.m., the well-known Grigory Rasputin arrived at the restaurant. Rasputin bared his sexual organs and carried on a conversation with the singers, giving some his handwritten notes, such as, "Love unselfishly."
The stories were so offensive that the Tsarina did not believe them for a second.
If we let our friend be persecuted, we and our country will suffer for it.
Rasputin told her,
Love heaven. It comes from love. Love the clouds, for that is where we live.
She would go on reading his words until the day she died.
July 1918. Each of the girls turned out to be wearing a picture of Rasputin around her neck. The bodies were put in the hole. No trace remained. The secret was kept.
The secret was kept. For 60 years, no one had been able to find the burial site of the Tsar's family. Then, in 1976, Geli Ryabov began his own search.
Of course, it was dangerous. They were censoring my letters, they were listening to my phone conversations. Sometimes they followed me.
Painstakingly, Ryabov assembled the pieces of the puzzle. Pieces of maps, notes, old photos culled from archives. At last, he was given a secret memo, written by the man who had led the execution. It described the burial in exacting detail and took Geli and his crew right to the spot.
Under a layer of old railroad ties, we found the bones of the family. They were in horrifying condition. Everybody was shocked. Some people were vomiting. These were black-green bones. The skulls smashed into pieces. The facial bones were broken to bits. The blows from the rifle butt smashed the faces apart. It was horrible. Really horrible.
Ryabov took 2 skulls to Moscow, hoping to identify them. But no forensic experts would dare to carry out the tests. So Ryabov returned the skulls to their grave, where they would remain hidden for 11 more years. When the family appeared in public, it was often to celebrate the glory of the past, a past that was slowly evaporating. Nicholas liked massive ceremonies, where he could feel at one with his people from a distance. In 1912, at the monumental Church of Christ the Savior, he unveiled a statue of his father. The next year, Nicholas presided over the 300th anniversary of the royal house of the Romanovs. Newsreel images of a majestic celebration flickered in movie theaters all over the world. The holy bond between Tsar and people, Alexandra thought, was confirmed yet again.
You see it yourself. We need merely to show ourselves, and at once their hearts are ours.
The next spring, the royal family traveled as usual to Livadia, their palace on the Black Sea. They were all in high spirits. Anastasia was enchanted by the magic of photography. She photographed herself in a mirror. Lying on a hidden bar, she seemed to levitate. She used double exposure to create a ghost hovering over her sleeping form. The year was 1914. It was to be their last year of happiness, an early, warm summer that lasted forever, in photographs. In real life, the summer came to an abrupt end. In August, Russia went to war against Germany and Austria. The beginning of World War I generated a surge of national spirit. Dissent was forgotten. In Palace Square, Nicholas and Alexandra went out onto their balcony. The immense crowd sang "God Save the Tsar." Nicholas crossed himself, and he wept.
A magnificent impulse has gripped all Russia. From the heart of the Russian land, I send my valiant warriors fervent greeting. God is with us.
But God was not of immediate help. Russian losses were crushing. One general wrote, "A third of the men have no rifles. The army is drowning in its own blood." After a year of war and death, the Tsar took command of the army himself. When he left for the front, Nicholas and Alexandra suffered a painful separation for almost the first time in 20 years of marriage.
My beloved Sonny, when I read your letters, my eyes grow moist. I don't know how I could have endured it all if God had not given you to me as a wife.
My very own beloved one. It will be a glorious page in your reign and Russian history. Sleep well, my sunshine. Russia's savior.
But the losses and the dead kept piling up. And the Tsar himself became a symbol of defeat, agony, and shame. While Nicholas was away, much of the governing of Russia fell to Alexandra and Rasputin. The Tsarina began weeding amongst enemies out of positions of power, begging Nicholas to listen.
Darling, show to all that you are the master, and your will shall be obeyed. The time of indulgence and gentleness is over. Why do people hate me? Because they know I have a strong will.
Within months, Tsar had dismissed his entire council of ministers. Rumors soared around the city. The German-born Alexandra, they claimed, was an enemy spy. The Empress and the monk became the two most hated people in Russia. The next act was predictable. Rasputin predicted it himself.
Tsar of Russia, if you hear the sound of the bell which will tell you that I have been killed, you must know this. None of your children will remain alive. They will be killed by the Russian people. Pray. Be strong.
In December 1916, a group of high nobles poisoned Rasputin with cyanide, shot him three times, and dumped him into the frozen Neva River.
Oh God, have mercy. Such utter anguish.
It was the first murder. There would be others.
July 1918. The bullet ricocheted, jumping around the room like hail. We scattered the grave with dirt and put boards on top. The secret was kept.
In July 1991, before the fall of communism, a filmmaker named Sergei Miroshnichenko was given some shocking footage. It had been made secretly by the police and showed that the Soviet government was carrying out a clandestine dig in the woods where Geli Ryabov had buried human bones.
Когда я понял, что действительно были увезены.
When I realized that the bones were being taken away, I got very scared. I felt that a terrible thing had happened, that no one will ever be able to know the truth about the murder. And although I did not want to do it, I had to bring people the truth. I had to tell them that the dig had taken place, that it had happened in secret, and the reason why it had been done was unknown.
The timing was eerie. The date was July 16, 1991, the anniversary of Nicholas's death. 12 miles from the date, the ceremony was taking place at the site of the murder. Miroshnichenko decided to tell the crowd what he knew.
The regional committee is in charge of this. We demand that they tell us where the remains are now and what happened. The most horrible thing that's happening now is we still can't trust anybody. This grave should be opened in the presence of the public. This is not the time to hide things.
But even as Sergei spoke, the bones were being packed out and stolen away in secret. History was being concealed again. By the first frozen months of 1917, Tsar's government was teetering on a slippery brink. The endless war was going badly. At home, people were starving, cold, angry. Unrest began to turn rebellion.
All this talk is ridiculous. How could Nicky share his divine rights with the Parliament?
Alexandra recommended force.
Lovey, be firm. Let them feel your fist. They themselves are pleading for this. It's a movement of hooligans, boys and girls running around, shouting about no bread. Just stir up excitement.
But the Russian Revolution was already 3 days old. From the front, Nicholas fired off a telegram.
I order that the disorders be ended tomorrow. Nicholas.
Too late. Soldiers locked up their offices and joined the workers' demonstrations. Red flags flew everywhere. The Tsarist government totally collapsed.
I remember the excitement after the Tsar's fall. It was a universal joy shared by all layers of the population. Everyone hoped a new era was coming, and that this new era was going to be better.
Nicholas had no choice. On March 2nd, 1917, he signed a manifesto in a railway car at Pskov.
We have recognized it as a good to abdicate the throne of the Russian state. May the Lord God help Russia.
My beloved, soul of my soul. Oh, how my heart bleeds for you.
Left Pskov at 1 in the morning with a heavy heart. All around me, I see trees, cowardice, and deceit.
On March 9th, the Tsar returned home to the Alexander Palace. The family could not leave the Imperial Park, but life was not unpleasant. Abyssinian crimson gold jackets still waited on them. The family kept busy. They put in a vegetable garden, cleaned paths, sat peacefully in the sun, rowed on the lake. As her own health deteriorated, Alexandra lashed out at her adopted country.
Oh, people. Pitiable, spineless milksops. Without character, without love for the motherland, or for God.
But Nicholas felt a strange serenity.
Now have plenty of time to read for my own pleasure. Also enough time to sit with the children.
After 23 years of hateful duties, he was finally in a sense, free. On July 31st, the family was put on a train with their tutor, teacher, physician, ladies in waiting, parlourmaids, lackeys, hairdresser, wardrobe, scribe, and wine steward. They had once hoped to go to England, but the train took them to Siberia. That October, the rule of Lenin and communism began. But fighting soon broke out between the Bolshevik Reds and the monarchist whites. Civil war cut the country into pieces. In April 1918, the communists moved the royal family to the Bolshevik stronghold Yekaterinburg.
A splendid, warm day. We were led to the house that had been gotten ready for us. Ipatiev's house.
The Ipatiev house had been given an ominous name. The house of special purpose. Nicholas and family were no longer guests. They were truly prisoners.
Workmen have put up iron railings before our only open window.
As the pro-monarchist forces closed in, hoping to liberate the family, Nicholas made a final entry in his diary.
The weather is mild and pleasant. No news from outside.
Late on the night of July 16th, a telegram came to the commandant of the Ipatiev house, Yakov Yurovsky.
I led them down the staircase to the basement room.
The girls were wearing special corsets where they had hidden the royal diamond, 18 pounds of diamonds. The family arranged themselves in a compact group. They thought they were having their picture taken.
I killed Nicholas point blank. The bullets bounced off the girls, jumping around the room like hail. And they tried to stab one to the bayonet. The point would not go through her corset. A common grave was dug. Their bodies were doused with sulfuric acid to prevent any stink from them rotting. We put boards on top and rolled over it several times. No trace of the whole remained. The secret was kept.
The last Tsar soon crossed over into the territory of legend. Nicholas and his family became a vague, fabulous rumor, like a story of ancient ghosts. In the 30s, during the rule of Joseph Stalin, relics of the Tsarist were tracked down and destroyed. Out his window, Stalin could see the Church of Christ the Savior, where Nicholas had dedicated the statue of his father. In 1931, Vladislav Mikosha was just beginning a career as a cameraman.
Вызвал меня директор студии.
The director of the studio called me in and said, here's your big assignment. You're going to shoot Christ the Savior. How they are destroying it. I've been asked, why didn't you refuse? Why didn't you protest? I was just a boy, and to disobey an order meant to lose everything. They were dragging out statues of angels, cherubs. They were destroying frescoes. I was astonished with this barbarism. How could they do it? There was something I even raised my hand to film, but I had to. I filmed everything.
Years later, on the site of the church, the Soviet government constructed a gigantic swimming pool.
Every time I walk by, I would remember what happened and feel it again. It was unbelievable blasphemy.
It was not just churches Stalin destroyed. Millions were carted away to the dreaded Gulag camps. Millions more executed. Every man who had signed the last Tsar's death warrant died by a bullet. Stalin's enemies included anyone who would remember what happened. Like history itself, they were erased. Then, in 1991, the Soviet government in turn collapsed.
It is very funny that the sickle is being destroyed with the same fury that accompanied the destruction of the Tsarist before my eyes in 1917.
History had reversed itself again.
They were selling the Tsar's portraits. It seemed very strange and surprising to me. It was November 7th, the date when people used to demonstrate with red flags. Only this time, there were a lot of people demonstrating in favor of monarchy. Everyone was now fascinated. Something that had been completely forgotten, crossed out people's memory.
After the sudden breakdown of the communist system, nothing in Russia seemed stable. Even the past was changing. In 1991, many schools had to cancel history exams. Even the teachers couldn't know what the correct answers would be.
Sometimes the children say it directly. Why do we need history at all? Tomorrow will be a different era, and everything will be interpreted in a different way. I just don't know what to believe.
That autumn, Miroshnichenko began to film the cross marking the Tsar's death. The House of Special Purpose had been torn down by the communist regime in 1977.
I started watching people at the side of the Ipatiev house. Religious people would go and pray there. Wedding parties would come. People took pictures at the cross. Drank vodka there. Some people brought flowers. Some people stole the flowers. And when I saw that, I realized that it won't be easy for us to come back. It is going to be a very long way back home.
Miroshnichenko's forensic experts examined the bones. With the new openness in Russia, the bones could finally be tested. The tests were definitive. This was the Tsar and most of his family. The question then arose: what should be done with these royal bones? What was done was nothing. In the years after the fall of communism, it became a ritual to celebrate May 19th, the birthday of the last Tsar. At Fyedorovsky Cathedral, a statue of Nicholas II was raised, the first statue of the Tsar in Russia since his death.
He was a wonderful father. He loved his family and his children very much. But still, it was his fault that brought them to the basement of the Ipatiev house. This is the tragedy of history and the human tragedy of Nicholas II.
The future. It seems to me there may be communism, revolution, or something else. Even the fish aren't biting now. In the old days, when the Tsar was around, they used to fish with just a stick and a hook, just a piece of wood. In those days, the fish were biting.
We hope you have enjoyed this presentation of National Geographic Video Library.